Welcome everyone and happy Friday. I hope your month of February has started off great for you. Thank you so much for joining us today for our monthly story of events. First things first, my name is Sierra Ladroma. I am the project manager for the Iowa Center's Women's Business Center. The Iowa Center's Women's Business Center is funded in part through a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Small Business Administration. You will all receive an email after this event from my colleague Ben Schultz, thanking you for attending How to Connect to our speaker and a form to complete. Please do us a major favor and take some time to fill this form out. This information allows us to continue providing free educational programming for small business owners in Iowa. Now go ahead, please take some time to locate the chat function on your Zoom screens so you can join the conversation by asking questions or adding comments. Today's featured guest is Pernell Cezar. Pernell is a CEO and co-founder of Black and Bold, the first ever Black-owned nationally distributed coffee that makes social impact a priority. Pernell is an accomplished sales executive, successful entrepreneur, and leader with more than 10 years of leadership success, significantly in retail. Black and Bold is founded in his core values of social impact, quality product, and community. Pernell takes much of his inspiration from his own upbringing, where philanthropy and community programming helped his widowed mother take care of Pernell and his sister. Pernell, my friend, the Iowa Center is so thankful for your time today. And before we start, if you've ever had Black and Bold coffee or have heard of it, go ahead and send some love in the chat.
Awesome, love it.
Okay, Pernell. Yeah. I know this is all about like your business, your entrepreneurship journey, your story, things like that, but I'm trying to know you as a person too, you know, behind the business. What are a few things that we should know about you outside of Black and Bold?
Outside of Black and Bold, oh boy. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I am super excited to spend this time with you and everyone else that's joining as well. Let's see. To know about me, well, number one, family guy. My wife and I have been married for over 8 years now. We have 2 kiddos, 4-year-old girl and a almost 2-year-old boy. And, you know, we spend a lot of time together, especially given this pandemic situation and, you know, typically balancing out a lifestyle of an entrepreneur. You know, the past, you know, career experiences I had me on the go quite a bit, you know, with traveling and whatnot. And so, you know, a big piece of silver lining for us is, you know, being able to be in proximity with each other and me be present much more than I otherwise probably could be with having the, you know, the give and go of traveling on the road. So huge family guy. And I would say sports guy, but let's say former. Huge fan of basketball in particular, formerly, pre-entrepreneur life, but other than, you know, coffee head, really turned entrepreneur. And so continue to build, you know, from those. Yeah,
I love it. I love when we can focus on the person behind the business too, just because there's so much, you know, it's all about, well, what do you do for business? What are your goals? Things like that. So thank you so much for sharing that. So what would you say is something that, what have you done for yourself or your family that has made you incredibly proud of yourself?
Sure. I like that you're not asking me scripted questions, by the way. So I'm letting everybody.
I know, I'm here pulling questions.
It makes me happy. No, I would say for me, being a first generation college graduate was huge. One, you know, not because it was something that like, you know, I was, you know, had on my like, you know, life goal or anything like that. I really didn't know much about college or undergrad or anything of that nature. I pursued just for the, you know, the idea that I can get a good job when I graduated. And, you know, my grandmother who, you know, was there, you know, to help support my mom and raising me, encouraged me to give it a shot and see what happens. And, you know, once I enrolled University of Northern Iowa in particular, that's what brought me to Iowa in the first go round. You know, learned about internships, learned about, you know, business and the different entities of the business and just getting involved in leadership opportunities. And it just opened my eyes to kind of what was possible. But ultimately, you know, as I, you know, saw myself graduating in my last semester, you know, as you mentioned, my one sister, she's 3 years older than me. She wasn't able to attend undergrad when she graduated high school because she had twin boys shortly after high school. But my last semester, she enrolled as a freshman at the University of Northern Iowa. And so, being able to learn more about, firsthand learn more about what the impact of higher education can bring to your development allowed my sister to see that and be inspired by that to kind of continue to pursue her journey and her ultimately enrolling and graduating and coming even more full circle. My two nephews are now enrolled to attend the University of Northern Iowa.
Oh my gosh, you're all there.
So you think about just kind of changing generational cycles as a whole. That's one of the things I don't think anything will beat that for me, just to be able to create a different mindset for people to pursue and ultimately go attain.
I love that you essentially created a path for your family and your future. That higher education is something that everyone deserves, and if you want it, then you go get it. And I think that's something to really, it's something to think about of maybe not doing the norm. So let's talk about being an entrepreneur right now. Instead of maybe getting a job and working at that for years and years, you chose to go the route of an entrepreneur. Do you remember what it was like when you first started, or maybe the idea of Black and Bold started brewing in your mind and you said, okay, I'm going to do this? What did it feel like for you?
See, I thought about being an entrepreneur longer than I've been an entrepreneur.
Oh, wow.
And so, again, my pre-entrepreneurship and 10 years of professional experience working in the corporate environment and a startup business environment, but not per se being an entrepreneurial, spirited, right? And surrounding myself amongst those people to help pour into them and support them. But being, in the seat is a completely different thing. And so, it's not that far removed. We started Black and Bold almost 3 years ago now. And so the mental exercise of preparing to make that transition was one that, I felt confident in my ability. It was just a matter of de-risking, the other individuals that were, within my life, my family in particular, right? And making sure that the business venture and my best friend, business partner, we were, not, our appetite wasn't bigger than, what we can take on. And so just being intentional about it, but even the eagerness to go pursue being an entrepreneur. When we launched Black and Bold, June 1st of 2018, the end of that month is when I, left the last employer I was with and went all in full time as an entrepreneur. And I'll tell you now, those first 6 months was more learning and developing myself and understanding a different version of me as an entrepreneur than it was more so about, the business. And I think that for me was really important because you have to, challenge yourself, but give yourself grace. If you're building something, I would always tell my wife, like, well, if I'm not doing it, it's not getting done. Yeah. So, knowing those things, but at the end of the day, having to look at the mirror and ask yourself, are you pursuing this the right way at the right pace, but also being fair to yourself along the way. And so just the rewiring of understanding that was really huge for me. And like I said, continue to learn and develop, but just in different ways as we continue to hit different stages.
I love that you shared you've had an entrepreneurial spirit for so long, like way beyond Black and Bold. And that within the first 6 months, you met a different version of you. And I think that that's a lot to take in. What would you give for as far as advice, right? So on this call, I guarantee you there are aspiring entrepreneurs or new entrepreneurs within that 6-month window. What would you, for advice, give to them as they start to meet these different versions of themselves, as they play these different roles and wear these different hats?
Yeah, Part of, I think it's really important to know, it's it, but to just remember, like, the only thing you control is your action, and what you put in and the time you put in from what's on your plate, and do the best you can with that. I'll give more on top of that, but at the end of the day, that it's always a balance on wanting results from decisions that you don't control, and trying to be patient enough but active enough that you're not putting all your eggs in, just a few baskets early on. But you're also, allowing yourself to let things develop, and not, make too many knee-jerk reactions as you're getting your business off the ground, and also as you're, again, learning yourself as an entrepreneur. Like, you easily want to see results because you need that to validate the next step, to validate even the reason why you got into pursuing a new venture or even entrepreneurship from the get-go. You need those wins, but you have to make sure that you're setting those wins up for success the best you can, and allow the law of time to reciprocate that. And so it's just, again, being kind to yourself, give yourself grace, but make sure that you put the best into whatever you're putting out there in the ecosystem.
I love it. So you mentioned before that you had surrounded yourself with different entrepreneurs, with the idea of entrepreneurship. Like, the seed is not new to you. So how would others know that they are surrounding themselves with the right people? And if maybe they really think about this and the answer is maybe not, what actions can someone take right now to start improving the people who are in their lives?
Yeah, so a couple of things: people in their lives versus entrepreneurs in their lives, right? Or their peer network, right? So you may have family that's in your life, but that doesn't mean that they're adding value to your professional side, right? And vice versa. And so you have to think about, how are you diversifying, where you're putting your time and pouring your energy that is productive for you, the whole person, but also productive for you as you develop as a professional, as an entrepreneur in particular. So, I had to distinguish those so I could focus more on the entrepreneur side of who you're putting yourself around, whether they're professionals, entrepreneurs, even, I say mentors from a distance, people that have content out there that you can learn from as well. I think the first thing you got to do is, assess your mindset and how you're thinking about what is positive or not, because you can learn from people's wins just as much as you can their mistakes, right? Because you don't want to have blind spots to things that may be holding others back or have held them back. Right? It's really important to have eyes wide open on what works, what doesn't work, what styles you enjoy, which ones you don't, how much do they align to you. So those things can give you more, vision, right, to kind of how you want to develop yourself, but also things that you can do or avoid in what aligns to your business and what you're doing. So you'll find yourself, whether they're individuals that or individuals that, again, from a distance, that you align to or adding value, you'll find yourself spending more time, seeking content, right? And it's always a balance of time on what you're doing, what you're focusing on, versus how much energy you seek out of others, right? Mm-hmm. But you for those that are 1 degree or 2 degrees of separation, can easily find that outreach to learn from them, learn from what they do, but also learn from the challenges that come from that. And then the same from researching other individuals that are in your space. So side tangent that and say, from a business model, I just have this mindset that you can always learn from any industry, from anything that you experience that you enjoy, and you think about the business lens of why that is. That's motivation, that's muse for you to always check, what is your idea? How can you sharpen your idea? Are there synergies from what you've seen work basically from them for you as an audience or consumer back into what you do? And so it allows you to have a broader perspective on what competitive advantage you can bring to the lane that you occupy, you're pursuing. So don't be so linear to people in your industry or, just your network of businesses, but it's just as easy as flipping it and say, all right, well, what brands do I consume? Why? What's their business model? How is it working against their space, right? And that's from tech to consumption to entertainment, so on and so forth. Like, there's no better way to appreciate what works from someone than realizing it worked on you. And learning about that's life.
Yeah, I love that you bring up the fact where, yes, reach out to people, connect to people, and content that bring value to your life, but also make sure to bring value to theirs. So it's kind of like a mixed or equal energy. So with that, how do you protect your time and protect your boundaries and really own in and being able to sell?
Yeah, tough.
Yeah.
Very tough. And it's tough for me, one, because I am just a business nerd. I enjoy like learning, of what's going on, what's working for people, what's not working, but also, adding value as well. And just like a successful business, the same, your time is pretty much business. You have to, prioritize, what you do and don't have bandwidth for, when you do and don't have bandwidth. And it's not the easiest thing to communicate. So for me, and my closest people know this for sure, is I always try to make sure I'm not putting out a promise that I can't deliver. It's hard to control someone else's, perception that they may have from a distance, but in the sense of what energy you are putting out there, you don't want to put out a false promise of availability or contribution to. And so I know right now, even for me, like all our time goes into sustaining and scaling what we're doing while trying to maintain sanity, my family's sanity, and the health of our team. And so it's one of the reasons why I really enjoy having opportunities like this, because it allows for it to still, feel a part of adding value to others, while still being able to prioritize the things that we have going on today too.
Okay, I love it. So when people were registering for this event, there was an opportunity for them to add a question. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to start with those questions. Can you talk about the importance of community involvement as a small business owner and how others can remain involved even if their time and financial resources may be limited?
Yeah, man, that can be answered in many different ways, because community as a whole, right? You have a community that is, supporters, community of consumers, community of, business to business. And I think there's a role for each aspect of that. It's also a responsibility for the small business, right, to seek support in ways that are not dismissive of how that support may come. Right? There's, I think the easiest part actually is, as a small business, identifying who your, core audience is and seeking that community, right? You seek validation for any idea that you have that there is an interested community. And so with validating that, right, you focus on building word of mouth, but also by way of building value, right? You just focus on, marketing to raise awareness of the developing community you have. But still by adding value in what you're, offering in exchange. But from a geographical standpoint, even so, I'm going to business to business and corporations supporting small businesses is really what I want to get at on this, because I think there is a responsibility for businesses, larger businesses, to ensure there is a ecosystem or reciprocity per se of entrepreneurship by way of, these suppliers that they do have, whether it's supplier diversity of minority-owned, women-owned businesses, but even small businesses and local. It, reciprocates back to the actual neighborhoods and job growth and employment. And that's where, it's a lot easier to make not only a positive impact to your community, but to better identify and build relationships with those individuals as well. And end of the day, it has a further impact to society with larger corporations, especially when it's not in their DNA. Having that mindset going forward, it builds a path for further sustainability. There's a infographic or a chart that shows like the largest corporations in their industries back in the 90s, and who the now largest businesses are in those industries today. And those businesses that were on the list are pretty much none of them exist, right? or they're not competitive anymore. And you don't want to be a business today or corporation today that's only relying on tech, right, to stay in a competitive advantage. You want to focus on building sustainable communities that you are having reciprocity to supporting their growth. And businesses supporting businesses, large businesses supporting small businesses, and diverse suppliers in particular, I think reciprocates back to the people that come from those communities, and they ultimately build a longer term relationship with you by way of that. So I think it's upon the individuals within the community, because businesses are ran by people, to share and support and raise awareness to their employers about the great businesses in their community that could be supported, and also for the businesses to seek out more engagement locally and with diverse suppliers to help fuel their communities as well.
I love that you brought up and emphasized the importance of, yes, being involved with the community is great, it's important, but also think about the person, think about the people, think about the individuals that you want to reach out to. You mentioned how you've used marketing, of course, for your product and growth, but also to reach those communities and reach those people that you want to support. So another question from a registered individual is, how do you market your business, and which tactics have been the most successful?
Sure. We market our business pretty much, I would say, with traditional marketing tactics in today's world, that being social, right? Organic activity, building a community via engagement by way of paid media as well. And I'm setting the stage for saying I'm not going to leave this here. Okay. But we engage in those conventional methods because we have to. You don't want to be absent of where your competitors' voice are as you're looking to build yours. But more importantly for us, in being a social impact driven brand, but more specifically domestic social impact, more specifically a brand in this space that doesn't really have other people that are focused on that particular purpose and ingrained in that purpose. Our responsibility is to raise awareness of what we stand for and why. And so it's about how we market per se, but what are we saying when we do, right? And what do we want to convey to people when we do, right? And what do we want them to take away from that? And if we have a proposition that allows the consumer, the audience, to connect further than just what they have accessible through other brands, well, it's our responsibility to convey that, because this is why we're in business in the first place. Right? And so as we build Black and Bold, it's hyper intentional to have not only a business that people want to purchase the goods because of the quality, right, and the experience and the accessibility, but also they believe and want to support the brand because of the values that it has, that it aligns with them, that helps them move further in that experience than they otherwise would. And so, we are present on most conventional spaces you'll see, but the way we go about building awareness to a community of people that either already have that mindset or behaviors, but those that want to, that may not realize it is accessible as it is. And our job is to build our brand to make it accessible for those that want to or have that lifestyle and want to cross over to the categories that we do offer.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is,
I threw a lot at you.
Yeah. I was here just ready to catch. Okay. So what I'm hearing is it doesn't necessarily matter where you post or how often, but it's the content and the value that each brings out.
Yeah, I mean, if you're building a business, even pre-pandemic, even more with this pandemic, if you're building a business, whether you're going to start a business, whether you're in a business, small, medium, large, whatever, like your why, if that's not on the forefront of whatever it is you are offering tangibly or the service, then why do you believe these people are going to connect with you on a deeper level, that they want to come back? Like great quality, unless you're the only person in your lane that offers great quality, you have to be able to build a community of people, a core of people that align to your why. We want personalization. We want to be seen as much as we can as individuals. You think about how you want to experience something, and then think about how do you best share that message and showcase that in the platforms that make sense for the audience that you want to talk to. So social media, I think, is pretty relevant for everybody these days, but it may not be as much for your business. That you may be a very B2B business, but all right, maybe LinkedIn is your platform, but that means you still lean heavy on your why. And if that's an evolving why because of the changing times, then convey that as well. You want people to know where you're going so they can want to be a part of that as well. So.
Okay. You brought it up first. You brought up pandemic. Let's talk about it. Another question that came in was, how has the pandemic shifted your business?
Yeah, it shifted ours a ton, in the wrong direction and then in the right direction at the same time. We, again, launched in June of 2018 with the intention of making, high quality specialty beverages, coffee and tea available, and, places where people feel and, their grocery checklist, right? And so we were pretty much incubating and game planning up until January of last year, of 2020, where we launched nationally with Target across pretty much all the major markets in the U.S. And so, we're small. We're a small business. We know where we fall in line in our category. Coffee's hyper competitive, and in mass and grocery, there aren't many, founder driven, fighter brands in those spaces. And so, we come in scrappy, but we come in, swinging pretty aggressively. Yeah. And shortly after January, here comes pandemic, right? And state closures and so on and so forth. And so what we found is our growth strategy had been bottlenecked because retailers weren't looking for new brands. They were looking to figure out how to best stay afloat, right? But then the other piece of it was coffee is very, locally accessible. It's, shop oriented. And when so many states closed, people that relied on their daily fix, which is like almost 70% of people drink coffee every morning, not being able to go to their shop, well, they moved to digital. And for us, we launched online, and we had a digital presence. We had Amazon storefront. We just need to fine tune it, and that put us ahead of this commodity industry that had people not really even focusing on digital because they had all of their heart and resources into those shop experiences. And so while we had the lane that we were trudging down pretty aggressively with supporting retail be slowed up, the digital experience was one that we were prepared enough to continue to chase and get ahead of. Now, the other piece of it was scaling up our business on the back end, right? We were in the plans of moving into a location. We were in like 1,000 square foot, shared facility, and we're planning on making it a huge jump that was delayed because of the pandemic. Hiring people, was postponed for the pandemic, and so we saw this influx of consumers online. And then, with June, with the support of Black-owned businesses and trying to mitigate the impact from the closure of Black-owned businesses during the pandemic and the support around social justice, June, and also being our anniversary month, was an astronomical pivot that we weren't really ready for. But it gave us validation that we can continue to invest in our team and infrastructure to get in front of it faster because that was part of our game plan. We just weren't ready to be able to service as quick as that came in. And so, silver linings nonetheless, but just, yeah.
I like that you brought up, and I want to just touch on it a little bit, that like stores and brick and mortars, they had to transition into getting comfortable with an online marketplace or some sort of digital platform. But also, as entrepreneurs, you always have that goal of we have to keep growing. So not only do you have that constant, we have to grow, we have to like keep growing our community, keep growing our brand, but now we have to adjust to this pandemic. So all of these things are happening at once. That was really nice to hear. So hopefully
I
that's.
think it's important for people to also take in consideration where your go-to-market strategy is. So, right, what's going to be your core revenue drivers? Like, who are those clients that line up within that? What's the secondary go-to-market strategy? What's the third? So, while you may not be activating against those, or you may be further along on one journey than the other, the one thing that will slow you down besides inventory or ability to service is administrative work. And so you have to know what the administrative pathway is to be able to continue to grow, not only in your core channel that you're focused on, but those second and third ones in case you need to pivot. You're not having to start from scratch on what does it take to make that pivot. Doesn't mean you have to be putting resources on the administrative upfront, but you have to have an idea of what's going to be required. So that, we get bogged down all the time, and we are, aggressively in pursuit of understanding what that work requirement is, so we don't end up bottlenecking ourselves.
Yeah. Okay, so you brought up that June is a big month for you. And this last June, it was a lot. There was that support for Black-owned businesses, as well as just your anniversary and social justice. How important is it for Black and Bold and for you and your team members to really shine what your values are when it comes to the topics that have been Black Lives Matter, have been social injustice and justice and equality?
Sure, that's what we're here for. There's no ranking, it's just part of our DNA. And that's, it's a jokingly statement, but there's so much fact-based in it. We were born Black, right? And so, and we grew up from disadvantaged communities and households. That, not to our fault, and I'm not going to blame my family's fault as well. But the opportunity to be in a space where, us pursuing, our dreams, or, solving a need that we see, creates just the basic of representation in doing so. And when it's unfortunate that there isn't any representation prior to, it shines that much more light and importance, not only for those that at least have an example to see, but for the industries, the competitors, your clients and partners that you build, because it's all setting a new standard of what is possible that people may not be consciously thinking of, or past tense may not have been consciously thinking of. But I think with this past summer, matter of fact, I know with this past summer, there's been so much focus on allyship, not just by way of consumers and friends and peers, but by way of businesses and partnerships, that it's much more intentional about the meaningfulness of partnering with Black-owned businesses, supporting Black communities, supporting social justice that makes not just Black people, but the world more equitable. It's that much further when people are aligned on what should have been the obvious need, and solving actual problems with what we do every day in our professional lives, but being much more conscious of the impact that it makes on setting a new foundation for the future. I think it just gets us a lot further faster. And there's a long way to go, but wherever we're going, we get further faster by being aware of it together. So
that's incredible. I think this is just another path that you are creating for yourself and for so many in the future. Another question that we have is, how do you keep evaluating your evolution without worrying you are way off track, or on the flip side, assuming your instinct is always 100% correct?
Oh man, that is a hourly thing.
We got 30 minutes.
Right. Oh man. No, it's a matter of, I mean, you have to be, I think it's very important to be in tune with the space that you're looking to compete in and win in. Not only from your business vantage point, but from you being a consumer audience of that. And then making sure that it's not just you, but who your audience is, right? You are able to evolve them from where they are. You're able to be relevant to what their options are. And the bare minimum, again, you have to know how to pivot and what are those, you know, you know, the option B or plan B, plan C things. And maybe you're pursuing all three of them at the same time to be relevant in case a competitor, right, comes to play with something that you weren't ready for. But, it's, I say hourly, somewhat jokingly, because we're always thinking about, especially in the commodity space, what does the experience look like for shops when this is over with? What does the experience look like online? What does the experience look like from retail, from all these dynamics and the community that we're building? How are their lives going to be changed? What are they going to expect more of? What are they going to expect or want less of? And how are what we doing allow for us to still fill that gap without changing who we are? Right? If anything, building a stronger, wider foundation as we continue to go versus having to have this little loopy foundation as we continue to chase what everyone else is doing, what the market is doing in itself.
I wanna hear more about that, because as your team and your literal team and your literal foundation continues to grow, how do you keep everyone centered, right? How do you take care of each other? How do you make sure your values, your mission are played out authentically by every single team member?
Yep, no doubt. I think that's, business is built off of people, and we're small enough business. It's not as if someone's coming into our warehouse and working on the line without us getting to know who they are. It's challenging today to do so because we highly respect, making sure people are safe. And so we don't get to do the team breaks and the lunch and learns and all that like we want to. But we make sure that people feel comfortable with knowing the person that's next to them, that, we have huddles to have, enough conversation and things like that. But, and we wear who we are on our sleeves. And so they're not, showing up saying, "Oh, I didn't know that these were the brand values." They're very much, innate in who we are and what we do. And we see that, most people that, that are on our team, I don't even say most people, the people that are on our team, and most people that have applied for positions on our team have been very overt around, their values as well. So I think being very transparent in who we are as a business, that being reflected in, we're still a founder-ran business, so reflected in myself and Rod allows people to be comfortable to share those values as well, even if they're not even, employed with us. And so that just creates a mantra of transparency, but all built off of mutual values. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm that question if we can keep going, but I feel like I missed a piece of that.
It's okay. So I have another one about your current space. So this person asked, talk a bit about the decision to move into your current space. Did you jump at the opportunity as soon as you thought you could afford it? Or did you sit tight for a while, waiting for the right opportunity?
Oh, we said tight. Very tight. For us, and even to this day, we are very intentional about not putting the cart before the horse on how we invest into the growth of the business. We try to maintain the pace of how we grow and who we grow with. It's a little less controllable with, direct to consumer, because any, activity that is, I'm going to call it monumental, can shift the volume of traffic that you have. So it's not as controllable and forecastable, especially with the pandemic environment. But, we started in my garage with a sample roaster because that's what we could afford to buy, and also get some green coffee to learn, how to not burn every batch. And, as we built, learning how to communicate our values and finding a community online and ultimately building a client base. And so when we knew we couldn't go any further without having commercial licensing, then we had to make that investment. Unfortunately, the Iowa Center was there to help us figure that out. Yeah, for sure. And so we were, as I mentioned, when we launched at Target, we probably were sharing about 1,000 square feet of floor space within a local brewery. Shout out to Fox Brewing. You know, we're fortunate to grow and scale in that space. But once you enter into a scalable environment like retail or distro, you need to have more room to grow, to scale, and all those things. But we were on our way to make that change, but the pandemic shifted that. And because of that, we ended up postponing moving into our space for about 5 months. And so by the time we needed it, we needed it the day before then, right? It was always, what you need yesterday. And continue to hit the ground running from there. So even as we think about, forward looking, we're now more in tune with, our runway and how do we, invest in the right next pieces that will create the next need of capacity that will ultimately fuel the next additional amount of space that we have. But we didn't, jump straight into our own standalone space. I'd say we're definitely beyond our capacity in the space that we were in for a while. So.
Okay. So you have a business partner, you are a co-founder, and there are a lot of businesses and a lot of entrepreneurs who are either going solo or just like you, they're doing it with a co-founder. So what advice do you have to really maintain a healthy, equal balance and relationship and friendship with this person that you're going to pursue this big goal with?
Yeah. Well, disclaimer, if you're new to entrepreneurship, just know that, your availability should be flexible with the results that you're trying to drive, especially when there's someone else at the table with you. And if you're not about that, you have to make sure you're aligned with the person that's at the table with you. Because entrepreneurship, especially from a startup, again, if you're not doing the work, it's not getting done. And I think it's really important there. It's not as easy for me to share like recommendations of dynamics for people, more so than to speak for mine. One, I'm hyper fortunate. My co-founder I've known for over 20 years. He's my best friend. Right. And so the level of wanting to work with someone that you can have disagreements with, but no, it's because you're trying to get to the same end goal versus disagreeing with them because of them, is huge. And it takes time to build when you don't have a relationship already established. Entrepreneurship, especially with a partner, it's not the cleanest conversation. It's not sitting in a conference room and charting out on the board, right? It's very much around how do you solve a problem that you're not giving a roadmap to do so? How do you build a roadmap to solve a problem that you envision and validate the way? So, does it have to be rooted in friendship? No. Common respect, yes. Mutual alignment on, willingness and energy to partner with someone to see it through, yes. But also to have hard conversations, to pivot each other, support each other, and to disagree with each other. But it all has to be rooted in respect. Going at it alone, I think, is even more important to find people that you do respect what they're doing, and seek knowledge from them. Again, it may not be direct, it may be indirectly, or finding a community of individuals that also want to have some line of communication. It's not always said. I have conversations with individuals and that have reached out to me in the past, or people that I've reached out to. It's like, I just need to have a normal conversation with a person that's doing this too. Right? Yeah. I don't need to ask about business advice more so than like, what's up? Like, how do you get through this? What were you thinking when you were at this stage, right? Those things are important, so you're not just in your own head and feeling like you're on an island. Everyone that's, perceivingly somewhat further than where you are probably still have those same mental challenges on going at it alone, or have figured out a way to, channel and manage it while still pursuing to move forward.
Okay. So I love that you brought up the Iowa Center. I'm going to bring it up more. how did you find the Iowa Center? And if you could share maybe a little bit of your experience so that, I don't know, maybe we have people on here who have, maybe this is their first impression of the Iowa Center. And of course, we're here to support small business owners, entrepreneurs, whether you're new, aspiring, or maybe 3, 5, 6 years down. So how did you come about the Iowa Center?
Yeah, I fortunately learned about the Iowa Center fairly early after launching Black and Bold. One of my really close friends was tapped by a friend of hers whose dad works at the Iowa Center, Mr. and just in the sense of resources provided for small businesses, micro lending, advisory support, all that great stuff. And being able to just have that on my radar allowed me to think a little bit broader on what resources I may need to get past immediate hurdles in order to continue to validate the path that we were going. And so was super fortunate because, as I mentioned, doing this out of the garage and needing to formalize the business, or getting to the point to need to formalize the business and move into a commercial space. Well, commercial space means nothing without the commercial equipment. And having a partner at the Iowa Center help navigate, receiving a micro loan to be able to make that purchase was huge, because otherwise it would have been, how many individual transactions we can get to be able to self-finance, a commercial piece of equipment. Because when you're out of the gates and you're that young, it's not as easy to get conventional lending. And, while there's the VC pathway and all that great stuff, again, very mindful of the competitive space that we, our vision aligns against. And it's not easy to have other people see that vision when you're really early on. And so being able to have resources to bring that vision to life just a little bit more. And I feel like we're always saying just a little bit more, see what our vision is, allows people to, come on board more, whether it's consumers, whether it's, again, client partnerships, and so on and so forth. So we really wouldn't have been able to formalize our pursuit without having the microloan by way of the support from the Iowa Center.
Incredible. I love to hear it. So a question came in, that mindset of I'm not doing it, it's not getting done. So at what point did you have to take a step back with some things and trust that your team was going to take care of something?
When I had a team. When Rod and I could stop looking at each other. But no, that's important one way or the other. And again, I think it's really when it was, just Rod and I early on out of the gates, and trusting each other to take it and run with it, but also to sometimes not trusting ourselves and wanting to make sure that we both were making decisions together. And so there's the balance between that. Again, a little bit more unconventional because of the tenure of our relationship. But with building a team, I mean, and this is probably from previous experience, is end of the day is when you have people that are on your team, you want them to be the best at what they do for their own development, for the greater benefit of the team. And the more you can be there for support and for guidance, right, or to help them get through their own decision making, the better. And so, we're still fairly young with building our team. We have, I believe, 15 people, 16 people today. Most within production and the coffee side of roasting and packing and all that great stuff. But still, they're empowered to drive what they do. And we're building synergy and engagement along that way. And so for me, it's a matter of asking of them and introducing them to new responsibility, but making sure they know I'm not asking too much, because we're there to support, right? We're there to support, but also help make the decision, so they get comfortable with being a part of a new startup that they're in it, again, working for a new company in a pandemic, right? New culture, and getting to know people, that takes a little bit more time because of how informal you can't be. Making sure that they know what's on their plate to move forward, they still have support in doing it.
Okay, I love to hear it. I want to take a second and just be in the moment how 3-ish years ago it was you too, and now you're at 15, 16. That's incredible. That's incredible. I'm just so proud of you. That's really great.
Yeah, it's fun. It's, again, new journeys, new challenges, and we wouldn't be in this business if we didn't care about, the positive outcomes of people that our ecosystem will touch. And so, a key piece of, the evolving responsibility role that Rod and I have in the sense of how do we continue to support our team, right? Their development, what are we building that, people want to come here and be a part of, not just the job, but, the opportunity to grow and learn and develop themselves. They don't have to want to have a career here, but we want them to know that they can learn and develop and grow here. If they want to, we want that to be available. Like, if they want to have a career, we want to create the opportunity for them to be able. But end of the day, anyone that's within our ecosystem, we want them to come out better from it. So evolving dynamics.
I love it. So what's next? What are you most excited for? What's coming up?
I think most importantly, there's a lot of things that's next, but it's doubling down on our business model. We're still young, we're still early. Making product that is high end, that coffee drinkers. If you never drink coffee and Black and Bold is the first coffee you drink, that is a blessing to my heart. Right? But those that do drink coffee want to further their experience, but also change their relationship with that and allow them to connect further to their community. And the best way we're going to do that is to continue to raise awareness of the fact that that exists, but also improve the accessibility of that. Even more importantly, with showcasing how partnering with Black-owned businesses can have such more meaningful impact, not just to our business, but setting a precedence for other partnerships for Black-owned businesses, for entrepreneurs to see themselves in partnerships, right? And for Black communities to feel represented and authentically included. Right? Those things are what I'm super excited about, and that also allows us to be evaluate things differently than just chasing a revenue line, which if we do our jobs right is going to happen anyways. Right? But the trail of impact and change that happens over pursuing the revenue line along the way. So we're going to continue to double down on our business model, but with the intention of focusing on meaningful opportunities to not making change, yes, but furthering the example of how to make change. So
I love how in line you are to your values and the mission of Black and Bold, because what you basically just said there was, I'm excited for people, impact, and product. Hey, perfect. Okay, so 2 more questions for you. How can everyone who watches this and who is tuned in right now, how can we all support Black and Bold and you?
Sure. So I think number one is continue to get to know us and learn us, and support us by way of sharing that awareness to others. Our website is blkblackandbold.com. We have our social media handles, and also available in retail distro, Target, Hy-Vee, Fairway. We have additional partnerships that we're really excited to come along as well. And I think the uber important piece for me is for you all to think about how being conscious as a consumer can impact communities. Because a win for Black and Bold is that the pie grows. And it doesn't just have to be in coffee, right? It's in setting those examples of supporting the Black community by way of business. And so, the intentionality you are having, just the behaviors of supporting and voting with your dollars. Again, if we do our job right within the space that we compete in, those decisions and, being self-aware as consumers will ultimately help us as well. So, we have the transactional side, but just the being more in tune is, in your behaviors and your shopping behaviors in particular.
Excellent. I support that completely. My last question for you is, a while back you mentioned mantras. What mantras do you carry, Pernell, as a person to get you through your days, or even when you're celebrating, or maybe you're feeling discouraged? What mantras do you have with you?
Oh man, I probably freestyle mantras more than I have those that stay with. But I would say one that has stuck with me probably the longest, that I received my first internship from a Black leader on the floor that took me under his wing. His mantra that always stuck with me was, take control of your future or someone else will. And, that was an ode to me to, learn, the areas that I needed to improve, but also to understand what I really wanted to improve, not just for myself, but overall, and to pursue that and continue to become a better version of me to do so. And so that's one that still sticks with me, but I try to share back to people and spread that word as well.
I think that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing. So we have just a couple of minutes left. Does anyone have any questions for Pernell? Anne did put a link for Black and Bold. Order your coffee and your tea. Pernell, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. I really appreciate it. Someone did just ask, so maybe last question, how do you advocate for yourself when you're working with big brands or partners?
Sure thing. Advocating for our brand is conveying the value add we have for them, and understanding that, right? For everyone you have understanding that, but for us, it's, we are looking to make, hiring coffee accessible. But regardless of that, we want to change people's behaviors and how they impact community. And so that's a proposition that we know exists. It then becomes a matter of, hopefully the business isn't reliant on closing a deal with one partner, that, we can, pursue and prospect the right partnerships and help them understand why we believe they are. And if they don't believe that, then they're probably saving both of us, not just, themselves. And so it's a matter of understanding your proposition, your lane within your competitive space, the why for, how it's going to get you further when you show up to compete, and the value that that client or partner can bring in doing so. And that, again, can be whether it's a retail partner for me, or a tech company that has a community of customers that they know that they ultimately need to help be a part of driving and shifting and educating the mindset for their consumers as well. So there's synergy beyond just the person on the revenue side. There's synergy with people that help drive your marketing and pour resources into your business so you can further pursue your revenue side of your business too.
Okay. And then there was a question that I missed in the Q&A. Aisha asked, why coffee as opposed to any other product or service? Were there other projects that didn't make the cut?
Oh man. Yeah. And so I tried a few notebooks of tech ideas. They're probably buried deep into storage somewhere. And same thing. And then even with knowing we wanted to scale the domestic impact model by way of packaged goods, and that evolution came with the longer tenure and career in that space prior to Black and Bold, and considering a few different product lines that were not coffee and were not consumables, but the scalability of just didn't make sense, and the personal passion of certain categories didn't make sense. One was textile. It just personally didn't align with me enough for me to innovate, compete in the long term, as much as when we look at our own behaviors. Well, I hardly go a day without finding a cup of coffee, no matter where I am. And then, of course, creature of habit, wanting to re-experience that. And that's been an issue as a consumer, because if you're going from city to city, or you find a shop in a neighborhood that you like, well, how do you access that when you're not there? And then how do you make other people have access to that experience, that aha moment of the experience of what specialty coffee is. Whole nother digression. When they do, and so knowing that was a void in experience, and my background with retailer distribution, and seeing that was the key part of the void, and understanding why that is from an economic standpoint, then I can understand my lane more to help communicate that proposition back to those retailers. And again, with the other value alignment, kind of gives the right foundation for partnerships to happen.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right. I've kept you a couple minutes over, but thank you so much, Pernell. Have an amazing weekend. Can't wait to just keep up with Black and Bold.
Love it. Thank you, Sierra. I appreciate you all. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.